Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us in Lifesaving Victoria's Effective Teaching for English Language School Students webinar today. My name is Caitlin Greenhill. I am a Project Officer for Swimming and Water Safety Education at Lifesaving Victoria, and I will be taking you through this webinar along with a few of our guest speakers as well. So if you haven't already, make sure you've got something to take notes. We will be going through a lot of tips and tricks today, so they're great things to write down. However, if you do happen to not have something to take notes on, that is absolutely fine, as this webinar, as you can probably already tell, is being recorded and you will be able to watch this anytime at a later date. We will announce when that recording is made available as well. Now, before I start, Ramsey from Lifesaving Victoria, I can see that you've got your hand up there. I just want to make sure that if you have a question or if something's up, if you want to pop that in the chat so I can make sure that everything is running smoothly. Otherwise, it may have just been a little mistake there, but please do let me know if something is up and if you do want to say something there. Otherwise, we will get started with our webinar today. So we would like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Okay, I'm just going to pause it there. It appears that you can't hear me. Can I have somebody please confirm that you can or can't hear and see me? Oh, it looks like, yep, fantastic. Thanks everyone. That is the beauty of the chat. You can pop things straight in there and I can see that most people can hear and see me. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. Now that leads us perfectly into housekeeping. All right, so you will have noticed that your microphones and your cameras have already been switched off. Please do make sure that these do remain off, as it allows us to present in a consistent way and there's no distractions in there for the other listeners. Now, we would like to point out that live captions are available for you to activate during this webinar. To be able to do that, you just have to click on the three dots at the top of your screen there. There should be a panel at the top next to the camera and the mic icon. There are three dots. You can click on those three dots there, scroll down to the bottom and you will see an option to switch on live captions. So if that is something that you would like to select, you can absolutely go ahead with that at any time during the presentation as well. Now, as I mentioned before, this meeting will be recorded, so that is why we have requested that you do keep your microphones muted and your cameras switched off as well. That means that this will become available for you to rewatch or even for you to pass on to your colleagues at a later date as well when it becomes available on our toolkit. Now, any questions at any time, or even if you just want to pop in a hello and let us know where you are joining us from, that would be absolutely wonderful. Pop those straight into the chat. You do have a chat box available to you. Again, to access this chat box, you can click on the icon at the top of your screen. It's a little speech bubble there. Click on that and you'll be able to open up the chat there. So anytime, as soon as those questions or comments are fresh on your brain, pop them in that chat and we will respond to those at a suitable time during the presentation. Okay, so let's go through what we're going to discuss during today's session. We are going to hear from Michael from our diversity and inclusion team, who's going to give us a bit of an intro into what they do in their team at the moment and what that has to do with teaching students who do not speak English as a first language as well. We are then going to go through some swimming and water safety program ideas that are very effective and developed for this group of students. Then we are going to go through some support materials that are available to you, as well as some support materials available to classroom teachers as well, to allow for students to learn some water safety concepts before even going to the pool for their programs. We'll be talking about some cultural competence and awareness information, as well as providing you with some fantastic teaching tips that have been collated by an English language school teacher. So looking at the departments and the people who work with English language schools and their students and who have also provided input for this presentation. We have our education team, which I myself am a part of. We also have Michelle in the chat who's joining us today, who you've probably been able to give a virtual wave to. If not, make sure you pop a comment in the chat to let Michelle know where you're joining us from and say hello. We have our diversity and inclusion team, a wonderful team who work all around the diversity groups, and that includes students and teachers from schools, English language schools, and students who do not speak English as a first language. We have our risk and research team who do everything risk and research, and they are looking into and have found some research around some different factors regarding students, English language school students learning to swim and completing water safety programs as well. And of course, we have some wonderful English language school teachers who have contributed their time and their knowledge to bring some information to this workshop as well. So a very rich presentation today, and we hope that you get a lot out of it. So to start us off, we're actually going to hear from Michael Masini, who joins us from the Diversity and Inclusion team at Lifesaving Victoria. Michael is the Manager of Delivery, Diversity and Inclusion in that team. So Michael, I can see you've already popped your camera on. If you want to take it away and run us through your presentation.
No worries, Caitlin. It's going to be a relatively quick one. If you're able to just move to the next slide there for me. Yeah, great. So this is really just to give an overview of what our team does at Lifesaving Victoria. We've been working with multicultural communities for 14 years now, since Lifesaving Vic started a standalone multicultural department. Great thing about this presentation today, it's been a real collaboration between a number of teams here at LSV who have each brought some experience and practical tips for teaching people from diverse communities. So as you can see there, the work that we do, it involves lots of different demographics. So people, it could be children, adults, established migrants, people who've been in the country for a while but just don't have great knowledge about the water, even though they have been living in Australia for a long time. Could be people who are attending schools, so that could be an English language school, primary schools and high schools, and people who have arrived in the country as little as 1 week ago to a couple of years. Could be adult education groups, so adults who have entered the country who are learning English. Community groups, youth groups, TAFEs who have these classes as well. So we have, I guess, contacts and connections with a massive range of people from multicultural communities across the state, and we would see about 20,000 or so every year, and that's mostly someone from LSV, someone from our team would actually see these people physically. So most of that would be in a classroom, sort of talking about the water safety knowledge and things that they should know about the water. And this might be a prelude to going to their swimming lessons or going to a beach. We would see a number of people at the beach as well. We run beach programs, and then there'd be probably about 1,000 to 1,500 people every year. Once again, COVID sort of affected that a little bit, but in a good year, that do swimming lessons. And this is where we form relationships with the swimming pools to set up swimming lessons and facilitate swimming lessons for people from different backgrounds. And we've done it in a number of different ways over the years and continue to do that, and often work with the flexibility of the pool and of the group to create the best program possible. And the tips and tricks that we talk about with these pools will sort of come up in this session. A really great thing is that sometimes from those swimming lessons, sometimes they're purely learn to swim, and it's to increase the water safety knowledge, skill and confidence of the people, especially children. Sometimes we do this with youth, so it might be teenagers, young adults, and they do their 1 term of swimming lessons with a group of their peers, and they really love it, and they really want to do it again for another term. So we'll help them do it for another term, and they get quite good. And then they sort of express interest in wanting to maybe become a lifeguard or a swim teacher one day. And that's when we help them along that journey. And some really cool stories over the past few years, particularly if there's anyone from Aquapulse, Northcote, Sunshine, Dandenong, Heidelberg, just a few off the top of my head, where someone has done swimming lessons through one of our programs or one of your swimming pools at some point. They have expressed interest in becoming a lifeguard. They've got the uniform, they've done the training, they've got the job, And then the conversation turns to, you know, I've got lots of other people in my community who want to do this, who want to learn swimming, but they just don't know how to do it or where to start, or they're a bit nervous. That's when we get those people to recruit into our programs as well. So there's been cases of those pools mentioned in the past few years where it just becomes a big circle from learning to swim, doing some extra training, becoming a role model for the community, and then getting more people to learn to swim. So this is a really powerful thing to, I guess, think about when you are teaching, that you do have a or potential to have a massive impact on the people that you are teaching that are newly arrived and who, you know, are seeing this as a completely brand new experience. Caitlin, if you just want to go to the next slide. Yeah, so I mean, this is a quick example of some of the, I think this was one of the language schools a few years ago. We ran a program in the western suburbs. And the next one, Caitlin. That will be, yeah, photo. And this is an example of the role model effect as well. Lots of lifeguards there, but a few swim teachers. And the girl in the middle, Aisha, she a couple of years ago was teaching other girls from her Somali community in Heidelberg, teaching them how to learn to swim. So just a real example there of you know, just the impact that these role models and you know, upskilling people in the pool can have in building their confidence. So I guess, you know, we're going to learn heaps of practical tips. So as Caitlin said, get your notebook out, get your laptop out, take lots of notes, because there will be actually practical tips that you can use. I guess one of the biggest ones that I have is, you know, be confident, have fun. A lot of people think that there's a secret formula to this and you have to do lots and lots and lots of training, which you do. It's great to upskill and you do have to do training, and these tips will definitely help you. But the best way that you actually get better at all this sort of stuff is just by experience. And the more that you do it, you know, going with confidence, think about the safety aspects, obviously, but have fun with everyone and you'll have an absolute ball. So yeah, that's all from me. That's you're going to learn a lot today. I'll hand it over back to you, Caitlin.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. It really gives us all an insight into really how valuable these swimming lessons are that we're providing for various communities around Victoria and Australia and even the world. The stories that you've told us, Michael, are not only inspiring, but they do give us a push to really continue developing these programs and making sure we share the value of these with our students. So thank you so much.
No worries.
All right, so what we're going to look into now are some swimming and water safety programs that Lifesaving Victoria have developed over the past few years that are targeted towards students in multicultural communities or students who may not have the full confidence to be able to participate in the mainstream swimming and water safety programs just yet. So these programs, they might be quite familiar to you. You may have already looked into them, but what we're going to do first is look into the funding that has been made available to English language schools commencing from next year. So from 2021 to 2024, it has been confirmed by the government that there will be funding towards swimming and water safety programs, which is absolutely fantastic to see. And this just shows you the breakdown of that funding. So the Victorian government have provided or invested $72.8 million into swimming and water safety programs between 2021 and 2024. Now, the breakdown of this funding involves $55.2 million for swimming in schools programs. So that is the funding that schools can use to book their school swimming programs, implement water safety programs. That could be land-based activities, that can be in the water activities and that sort of thing as well. And this has just opened up to English language schools commencing from 2022. So that's a really big thing. And it also encourages you guys as swim schools to reach out towards English language schools and really push for them to get involved in school programs, because they do have the funding available beginning of next year to be able to cover the costs of those programs, and very, very valuable for their students. The second aspect of that funding is $15.1 million, which will cover transport costs. We do know that that can be seen as a challenge and a barrier for some schools to get their students involved in school swimming programs, especially for schools who may be located in areas that are quite a distance from pools or aquatic facilities. And the third part of that funding is $2.5 million towards the Public Water Safety Initiative. And that is everything that we do at Lifesaving Victoria, developing the resources, developing the programs, and providing these workshops and professional development opportunities for you guys. So before we jump into the programs that we have on offer at Lifesaving Victoria, and some program ideas for you guys, we would like you to complete a little survey. Now, this is going to be intertwined into this presentation throughout our time here. So everybody knows how to use a QR code, I'm sure. So jump on your device, scan that QR code. If you don't have access to a camera, you can jump to www.slido.com and type in that code that is on screen now. Now we're going to have a bit of fun with this. It's a bit of interaction. We're going to be asking you questions and we'll be using it throughout the session today. So the first question we would like to ask you is, have you worked with the following groups? We've got people with low levels of English, people newly arrived to Australia, and people who have low knowledge, confidence or skills in swimming and water safety. So jump onto that. Michelle has also popped that Slido link into the chat as well if you're unable to scan that QR code. The QR code is still on screen. It's the same one that was on the other one. So you can just scan that one and jump onto the Slido there and complete this survey. Now, while you're doing that, I can see there is a question in the chat from Emily. Just wondering if funding for school swimming for 2021 is lost, if not accessed due to COVID closures, or does it roll into the following year? Emily, that's a fantastic question. It is one that I don't have the answer for today, but the Department of Education and Training will release communications or be able to answer that question for you, hopefully towards the end of this year. As soon as we have further information, we would like to provide that with you guys as well, but at this time we don't have that information. Last year we did see the rollover of funding from 2020 into 2021, but at this time we are not sure of what 2022 funding looks like from 2021. But fantastic question, thank you for asking. So it looks like we have got quite a lot of people, or everyone who's popped in to the Slido have worked with people who have low knowledge, confidence or skills in swimming and water safety, which is fantastic. They may not be from multicultural communities, they may not speak English as a second language, but it is really important to know that these programs that we're about to show you aren't just targeted towards multicultural communities or students from English language schools. They are utilised and focused on people who do have low knowledge, confidence or skills in swimming and water safety. So a really good thing to note there. All right, moving on. So the philosophy and the purpose of swimming programs for English language school students are listed here. Some of them you might have more, some of them you might really connect to, but us at LSV, we see these key points on the screen now as the real purpose of why we deliver these school swimming programs to these groups of students. So it provides an introduction to a safe water environment. Okay, it's a pool. You guys as swimming teachers are there to provide the safest area and the safest environment for these students to learn vital swimming and water safety skills. Students can experience something new. They may have never been at a water location or a water environment before in their lives, so this could be a very new opportunity for them. It allows them to build their confidence in the water, and basic survival skills are seen as a priority in these programs. So stroke development can be a part of it. However, those survival skills are the key part of these programs. It does allow for flexible programming as well. You can grab bits of this lesson, move it around with another lesson. It is up to you how you utilise the programs and the resources that come along with it. It allows students to have fun and socialise as well. So that's a really big part of any school swimming program, is that it allows students to really connect with their peers and build rapport with other participants. That's not only between students and students, it's also the teachers, the swim teachers and the students who can all build a rapport with each other as well. And of course, a really big part of this is being able to have or share cross-cultural communication, experiences, backgrounds, all sorts of things, so we can continue to learn from each other as well. All right, so the programs that we are sharing with you today and we have developed in the past does target those students who have the low confidence and the low skill levels in the water. So these are great programs to utilise with English language school students who are often newly arrived into Australia and may have never had any experience in the water or with swimming lessons in the past. So we're going to watch a quick video now that's going to share with us exactly what these programs involve. And I'll make sure that sound is working.
To develop their skills so they can help people if they're drowning.
So my name's Hayley. I was one of the instructors in this week's program. It was really different to what we would normally do with a school group. I feel like because it was a bit different, the kids were more engaged. They were excited to come. Even with the homework, they were excited to answer the questions again in class. Then I had a student say to me today, he's like, oh, I was pretty confident swimming laps, but I didn't know about the water safety side of things. So that was good to hear.
The best thing about the program was actually trying to learn new techniques and how to save someone from drowning or having a hard time in the pool or at the beach.
So I thought I'll just come to the last and see how she's improved. And I can't even believe it. She's swimming, I think, up to 300 metres now on her back, kicking and floating in the deep end. I think this has helped with her confidence, and that's all she kind of needed to go, oh, I actually can float in water and I know how to do it and I'm not going to drown, which is really good. Yeah.
Okay, so as you saw there, that was an example of one of our survival swimming programs, which was the 5-lesson survival swimming program. That 5-lesson survival swimming program was actually planned for us to commence a pilot program as part of our English language school deliverable, which falls under our public water safety initiative. But unfortunately, due to ongoing unforeseen circumstances, we are unable to complete that this year. But that gives you an insight into the pilot program that we will be commencing next year in term 1 with an English language school to determine the best programs and methods of teaching for these students, to see if this training that we provide for you today and the resources that we have available, the program that we have on offer, is suitable for this group of students. We do believe that it is the most effective one. It also comes in a 10-lesson option as well. Obviously, the more time students can spend in the water, the better. So the 10-lesson is the ultimate one that we have available. But if you have time restraints, the 5-lesson survival swimming program is also fantastic. Now, you may already have at your own aquatic facility or swim pool a survival swimming program in place. However, if not, or if you want to have a look at what we have here, we do have these free resources, which include lesson plans, they include must-see sheets, they include some different scenarios as well that you can include in your lessons, and we also have a certificate that students can be awarded at the end of the program as well. So definitely make sure you check that out. Michelle will pop the link in the chat. It is on our toolkit. And Michelle, I can see that you've got your hand up as well. Is there something that you wish to share with us today?
Great segue there, Caitlin. I cannot put this in the chat at the moment because for some reason I've been kicked out of chat, and I think a few people might have been. So chat's not currently working, but somebody has already realised that if you are still in that Slido poll, there is a question and answer function there. So Caitlin, I don't know if you want to share that Slido QR again for anybody who does have questions. I'm live in Slido answering questions already. Someone has asked if the presentation will be made available. Yes, it will be, but if you, Andrew's chat's great. Well, if you've got chat, keep going with chat, but if not, Slido does have that chat function as well, so you can chat to us there too.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle. That's right. Unfortunately, technology, even at the best of times, decides not to work. So we do have ways around it. So we will be bringing back that Slido poll. So once I whip right back around into that section, it will pop up the QR code and you'll be able to jump on there. So it won't be too long, but we'll jump across now to some classroom resources that Lifesaving Victoria have been developed over the past term. These will be made available to swim teachers towards the end of this year. We are going to have them up on the toolkit where all of our resources are kept. These are also going to be sent around to English language school teachers before they are launched onto the toolkit. These are brand new resources. We want to make sure we get them right. So we are sending them around to teachers to get their feedback. If any edits are required or if we think that they are super suitable for the students that we've targeted, then they will be made available on our toolkit for everyone to access. Now, the best thing about these is they do connect to some resources that we do already have available on our toolkit, such as our watch and learn videos, our VR tours, and so forth. So they will be made available, and they're also targeted towards junior primary, senior primary, and secondary. So there's 3 different levels available there. Okay, moving right along, we're going to talk a bit about cultural competence and awareness now, and that Slido QR code isn't too far away. So if you do have questions, make sure you write them down and you'll be able to add them to the Slido very shortly. So looking at the drowning report that was developed and released in the middle of last year. So this looks at the 2019 to 2020 financial year period. Now, what was outlined in the report is quite important for us to understand. There was some points stated in there, such as 147 overseas-born people drowned over the past decade in Victoria alone. 21% of drownings were cold identified. Cold is culturally and linguistically diverse communities. Over the past 10 years, 36% of drowning deaths were overseas born. Now that means that they are over 2 times as likely to drown as Australian born counterparts, and the majority of these drownings were seen in weak or non-swimmers. So these key points really, really hit the mark and tell us that these programs that we are offering to English language school students, to multicultural communities, are so important. So really keep thinking about that when you're really reaching out, getting participants involved in your school swimming programs, in your Learn to Swim programs. These communities really do need to get involved in our swimming lessons and our swimming programs as well. So very important facts there. All right, here is that QR code for the Slido. So thank you all for being very patient. If you do have any questions, you can scan that same Slido link. It's the same one as last time, and you can switch across to a tab that says Q&A. So that's where you can pop your questions there. Fantastic, someone's popped that in there. What will happen is it's automatically opened up this live poll here. The question that we want to ask you is, what does cultural competence mean to you? 1, 2, 5, 10 words. Let us know what that phrase, cultural competence, means to you, and we'll start seeing your answers pop up on the screen. Now, while we wait for those to pop up, Michelle, have we had any questions or any further comments pop up in the chat at all? I know you didn't have access, but I can see you've just popped something in there, so you may have access now. I will do a quick flick through as well.
Sorry, Caitlin, didn't realise I hadn't lowered my hand, but we have worked out, thanks to some other people in the chat, that if you don't have access to the chat on your laptop, you might have access on your phone. So I am trying to answer everybody on my phone and in the Slido, so wherever you post, we'll get to it. We've had Helen ask if the resources will be available for the survival swimming program, I think. Yes, I've just posted the link in the chat and in Slido, so those resources are available on our toolkit. I don't know if you can see any, I don't think there's any other questions yet.
Fantastic. No, perfect. And we've got some comments in the chat, and we've also got some comments on the screen now about what cultural competence means to you. So this is fantastic, getting your ideas out there. We can see some that says, be aware of other cultural needs and beliefs, understanding and awareness of, oops, that one just popped off. Everyone's popping their answers in now, which is really, really great. I see a lot of keywords like respect, understanding different cultures, inclusive etiquettes, people from different backgrounds, understanding again, a feeling of being part of the group, great one there, being sensitive to each and every person, and lots of other fantastic words there and phrases there. So a great thing to think about when we go into our next part of this workshop. And sorry that I have just cut off the poll there, but thank you. If you do still want to pop something in to share your idea of what cultural competence means to you, feel free to pop it in this chat as well. But we are going to move right along and chat with Beata Kiss. Now, Beata is the coordinator of research and health promotion in our risk and research team, and she is going to share some fantastic research that she has done into teaching multicultural communities or students from diverse backgrounds who don't speak English as a first language, and also share some discussion points there. So, Bea, I will leave it to you, then you can take it away.
Thanks for that, Caitlin. Hi, everyone. So as Caitlin said, my name's Beata Kiss, and I'm the coordinator of research and health promotion. You can just call me Bea. And as she mentioned, I'm a member of the aquatic risk and research team. So what we do is we engage with internal and external stakeholders, both within LSV and in the aquatic industry and wider Victorian community, to provide an evidence base for projects within the organisation. And we also monitor and evaluate these projects. So I was asked to present today, and I'm actually very glad I got to present today because just as soon as this meeting started, my building actually got evacuated. So we were in and out very quickly because it was a false alarm, but very glad to actually be here presenting. And one of the reasons I was asked to speak today is partly because the risk and research team has helped with providing a bit of an evidence base and research base to some of the wonderful projects that Caitlin and her team are doing. But also because I do have a lot of experience and a huge passion for working with culturally and linguistically diverse communities. I also noticed a lot of you have experience as well. So I saw so many people have experience with people whose first language might not be English or working with diverse backgrounds, and that's wonderful. So I would really love it if throughout my presentation you were to interact, maybe give me some of your experiences, whether it's your own background, experience with CALD, teaching in a CALD demographic. My big belief is everyone is an expert in some way and we can all learn from each other. So I would absolutely love to see what you have to say. So I thought I would get into what is cultural competence. So despite my plethora of experience working with culturally and linguistically diverse communities, I've always had a really hard time summing up what cultural competence and cultural sensitivity, awareness, intelligence, etc. are, because they're such holistic terms in a way. And so I saw some of the things that you all had to say, and they're absolutely fantastic. So it seems like a lot of you have a really strong grasp already, which is amazing. I found this definition from the University of Sydney by Professor Sherwood, and I thought this was a beautiful way of kind of tying together both what I kind of see it as based on my experiences and research, which is cultural competence is the ability to participate ethically and effectively in personal and professional intercultural settings. It requires being aware of one's own cultural values and worldview and their implications for making respectful, reflective and reasoned choices, including the capacity to imagine and collaborate across cultural boundaries. So I thought I'd give a bit of an idea as to where my passion for working with CALD communities started and kind of how that can link into water safety. So to give you a bit of an idea, I'm sure you can see from my name that my own background is culturally and linguistically diverse. So my parents moved here in the 80s as refugees from Hungary. And so, from a very young age, I realized that culture and identity are so heavily intertwined, going from that Hungarian household to schooling in Australia was such a huge huge, I guess, process. And then for my undergraduate degree, I did counselling, and anyone who's from person-centered, you know, job career, as most of you are, you know that you interact with so many wonderfully diverse people, different ages, backgrounds, genders, and cultures. And so based on this, I assumed I was culturally competent, heavy emphasis on the assumed part. And then after my undergraduate degree, I moved overseas, where I decided to live in Italy for several months. So I taught English for several months, and that's where I really started understanding the difference between you know, being inclusive and non-discriminatory, which is what I assumed was cultural competence, and cultural competence. And so a lot of you mentioned, you know, it's about understanding, it's about seeing someone's views, and that's such a huge part of it. But it's also about self-awareness as well. And, you know, I had a lot of other experiences in which I worked with culturally linguistically diverse communities, most notably when I really started understanding how it can be, you know, how it can work was when I did an internship at the United Nations. And one thing that I'm sure most of you know about the United Nations is that the beauty of it is that it is such a lovely culturally diverse place. So no two people are from the same background. And it's wonderful in that way because you get to know so many things about cultures you might not even have you know, engaged with in the past, but it can also prove a challenge, especially when you're in a diplomatic global environment. And so you really have to be not only aware of their culture, but your own, and how those two can interconnect. I then completed a Master of Public Health, in which my final thesis focused on health communication in a culturally and linguistically diverse way, specifically focusing on the Vietnamese community. And so that kind of gave a research and literature-based background to my understanding of what it means to work with culturally and linguistically diverse people based on experiences. So you might be wondering, cool story, how does that relate to water safety? So I wanted to kind of give some little I guess, pockets of insight into different ways that different cultures might understand what water safety, swimming, etc. are. So can you please change the slide, Caitlin? Thank you. So I was doing some research in regards to how water safety can be viewed from different culturally and linguistically diverse communities. And there was this really great article I came across that showed lots of different people's perspectives based on where they are, what they're doing. And there were some little tidbits. So for example, one of the participants from Afghanistan stated that swimming is a luxury because in their country, you know, it's landlocked, so there's not many opportunities, so you might have to be a bit more affluent to swim. In terms of, there was a participant from Korea who noted that swimming is something that is primarily for athletes. So it's not really seen as a leisurely activity as much. Another participant, I was looking at another article that was a Malaysia-based study, and I thought this was really interesting. Over 50% of people, that was kind of a combined statistic based on, you know, how many percentage of people learnt from their parents, uncles and aunties, siblings, etc. Over 50% of people were taught to swim by various family members, indicating a lack of formal instruction. And I can speak to this in my own way. So one kind of anecdote we have in the family is my dad's own experience of learning how to swim, which was his dad, you know, putting him over the side of the boat and going in the Danube River when he was 3 years old and saying, all right, swim back. And that was their idea of swimming because they didn't really have as much formal instruction. And another thing that I thought was really interesting was a New South Wales-based study that said that Chinese participants from the Chinese community stated that they actually enjoyed certain risks and excitements and stuff like that in terms of aquatic-related activities. So that, again, is another way in which you can, you know, view swimming from that cultural, within a cultural landscape. So when it comes to cultural competence and awareness, how can you kind of incorporate this into your teachings? And you know, that's one thing that I really want you to think about while I talk is you know, how can I use this knowledge to, you know, implement it in my swim trainings? So a lot of this information, as I said, is research based, but I also spoke to a lot of different organizations, one such being the Swim Brothers. I don't know if you may have heard of them, but they are just this lovely organization that work with culturally and linguistically diverse males to teach water safety because, as I'm sure you know, males are overrepresented in drowning statistics. And one thing that they said was, and I guess this is kind of reflected in the literature. So one thing in the literature was saying that language barriers are not actually as big of a problem as you might think they are. It's more cultural barriers. So, you know, the fact that someone might not speak English as well doesn't necessarily mean they can't learn how to swim. It's more effective based on the demonstrations and the definitions. So, for example, in some countries, water safety might mean water quality. Swimming can be interpreted as splashing around in the water. Or even one of the tidbits that the Swim Brothers told me was the term treading water, for example, is one that causes a lot of confusion. And as a result, they said to me, you know, don't go too hard into specific terminology. Instead, demonstrate or define what those terms mean in broader ways, while still ensuring the students are understanding what is required of them. So, you know, don't get too caught up on, you know, the definitions, treading water, talk, rescue, backstroke, freestyle, etc. You know, be more demonstrative. And you probably notice I talk with my hands a lot. That is definitely something I learned as an English language teacher. It really tones the arms when you're trying to, you know, gesture all the time. So that's also good for you as well. Good bit of workout. And another thing as well that I wanted to talk about when it came to I guess language barriers is also a mental barrier as well. So one thing that I will never forget that someone told me when I was in Italy is, because was people might speak English perfectly, they might be wonderfully fluent, but a lot of their exposure to the language, especially if they're from another country, is not always positive, because it was in a classroom setting. So if they got it wrong, the teacher would get upset with them. And then when they're with a native speaker, they makes you kind of question your own understanding of it as well. And you know, one way I kind of empathize with them is I think to myself, would I know this in Italian or Hungarian or German, etc.? And I think probably not. So it's a good way to kind of put yourself in their shoes. So, you know, don't get and you know, that's one thing that I think is a really big note is, you know, there might be mental barriers when it comes to language learning, and swimming, you know, if they're in a new environment, it can be a bit stressful. So, you know, I really want you to think of ways in which you can ensure your students feel safe when learning swimming, you know, when they're potentially having stress from both learning a language and swimming as well. But because a lot of you have the previous experience, I'm sure you all have this under the bag, in the bag. So, yeah. Another thing as well is lots of different ways in which people might engage. So, for example, I was talking to another organisation called Aqua English, and they were saying that some students might not have an understanding of classroom-based activities because they might have learned, their school might have been underneath a tree or something like that. You know, it might be, they might have so many different ways in which they understand group-based activities and dynamics and stuff like that. Yeah, so there's so many different ways in which you can, I guess, understand different cultures. And yeah, it seems like a lot of you have some really wonderful experience already. And I'll have a look at the comments after to see what people have wrote. So in terms of engagement as well, so why programs often fail is when it comes to CALD communities is they don't always cater to the needs of them. So for a start, there is a lack of appropriately qualified CALD specific swim teachers. And this does include for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander teachers as well. And that's to say, you know, yes, we do need to see more representation of, you know, people who not just are from a CALD background, but people who are trained in it. And, you know, the whole point of this PD is, you know, everyone can get involved, everyone can learn how to do it. It just, you know, takes that, again, that self-awareness to be able to know how you can do it better, or you know, engage with the information said to you. So another thing as well is traditional swimming lessons are very Eurocentric in nature. So again, we talk about that idea of, are the students used to that group-based activities? You know, are they understanding what's being said to them? You know, are there ways in which you can adapt to them culturally? So as said before, it's not always language barriers that are the problem, it's cultural barriers, because every single culture has a different understanding of water safety, swimming, formal instruction, etc. Community engagement is huge as well as engaging with families. So one thing that I found in my own research, and that is quite commonly seen in a lot of literature when it comes to health communication in the CALD, within a CALD way, is a lot of communities have a lot of community-based information sharing. So, you know, maybe older people within CAL communities won't actually see social media and websites as much. They'll hear it from their children or their friends and stuff like that. So really engage that community and the community leaders. And also know the barriers. So, you know, we've talked about some of them today. So know those and know how to kind of, I guess, break them down. So how can we, you know, what are some proposed solutions? How can we make this better? So for a start, role models. So engage with people from CAL communities to lead and teach water safety swimming, to advocate within their community. As we talk about, representation is a huge thing as well. And also CAL specific swimming teachers. So the fact that they're all here today, you know, wanting to learn and you know, engage with the communities is a fantastic thing. Engaging better understanding of beliefs, attitudes and behaviours of water safety. So, you know, understanding how people view water safety and how you can possibly show them ways in which they can do it in a more location specific setting. Cultural graphics, flashcards, demonstrations, those are wonderful. Anything visual is amazing. As I said, hand actions, once you use them, you won't stop. And, you know, anything visual or fun, that makes it engaging. Mentoring as well is very crucial. So especially kind of after a program, we'd be looking at, well, hopefully if it's within, if you're able to, you know, like follow up with those students or you know, show them that there's someone there who does want to be a part of it in that way, or want to help them and see what they've learnt. And yeah, so that's basically all I have to say today. So like I said, I'm happy to look through the comments to see what you've said. I believe there is a question and answer session at the end. So if there's anything you'd like to ask, comment, etc., please do so. I'm really interested to hear what you have to ask and say. And that's all from me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Beata. That was a really insightful session. And thank you so much for sharing your background and your experiences as well. It gives us that further and deeper understanding. And I'm sure some people, and I was reading some comments in the chat, have been able to make connections with what you've been sharing as well. So really rich, powerful stuff there. And we do appreciate you being able to present today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. Thanks, everyone.
Fantastic. If you do have some questions or comments for Beata, please do pop them in the chat as well, and we can attend to those at the end of the session. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have a bit of a quick fire round and fly through some teaching tips. Now, these are just sort of straight off the bat, pretty key teaching tips that we've actually had shared with us from an English language school teacher herself. So she has been able to ask around with her colleagues and thinking about her understanding of her students and her experiences taking her students to swimming lessons. These are the key tips that English language school teachers want swim teachers and swimming school coordinators to know. So make sure you've got your pen and paper ready, and we are going to get through these nice and quickly. So tip number 1. Never assume that English as an additional language, or EAL students, understand what you have said. So it's always a really good idea to be able to get the students to repeat what you've said or explain the instruction in their own words. That will show you that they have understood what you've said, and you can check in with them as well. And check in again, check in again. So get the students to talk to you, not just you giving them instruction and then moving straight into that activity or following that instruction. Make sure the students are talking to you as well, so you can check in and get that understanding whether they have understood what you have said. Tip number 2, keep the language simple. Also speak slowly. Now this is something quite important. I know that we don't want to offend anyone by speaking slowly, which you may think might be a little bit offensive, but it is very important to do speak in a suitable pace for students. You can get an understanding. It's also a great idea to communicate with their teacher before the session and maybe listening to how the teacher is speaking to the students. That will give you an understanding of the pace and the suitable level or suitable language to use with these students as well. It's also a great idea to be able to repeat or paraphrase the instructions or the messages that you are providing to students. So you could say, I need you to walk around the pool. We are going to walk around the pool. Everyone is going to walk, no running. So repeating those instructions or messages in various ways. Number 3, use students with higher levels of English to translate to their peers. Now, this is something that Lifesaving Victoria actually utilises very heavily in our own programs with multicultural communities. It's a great idea to chat again to the classroom teacher before the session, get an understanding of the students in the group who may have those higher levels of English and are more confident with utilising their English skills during the swimming lessons. Now, what we do at Lifesaving Victoria is we would then allocate those students who do have those high levels of English into different groups so that there is a representative in each group who can communicate with the students, who can interpret or fully understand what the teacher is saying, and can then sort of assist their peers as well and give them some support with their English language and being able to understand the instructions or messages. So a really, really great one to use there, and one that Lifesaving Victoria uses quite a bit. Number 4, as we've said throughout this presentation, demonstrate everything. And I know that a lot of people have actually mentioned that in the chat as well, that they use a lot of visuals. Demonstration is a very big thing in swim teaching, not just for students who don't speak English as a first language, but also for your mainstream students as well. If you have visuals handy, we have some visual cards or flashcards that are going to be available on the toolkit at the end of the year with that package of classroom resources. So they are great things to use, and they will also be utilised by the classroom teachers as well. So some familiarity there with those resources and allowing students to make connections between the language that you're using and those visuals and what they mean. So it's very, very important there using visuals. Number 5, give one instruction at a time. Make sure it's short, clear instructions, and start with the verb as well is a great tip there. So walk to the edge of the pool or swim to the edge of the pool, those sorts of phrases there. Number 6, when using compound sentences, so these are sentences that include and or but to break up the sentence, make exaggerated pauses. Okay, so like we say, keep those sentences simple and short, but if you do have a sentence where you have got an and or a but or something in the middle, those compound sentences, make sure you have that big pause in the middle. Okay, give students that processing time to understand it, allow them some time to pause and ask a question perhaps. They might say, oh, what does that word mean? And you can break up the sentence that way. So those short sentences, or if you've got the long sentences, make sure you allow for that pause in the middle of the parts of the sentence there. Number 7, and the final tip, is to make sure you allow for time for the students to explore the water. Maybe the first time or one of the first few times that they've experienced an aquatic environment. So allow them to explore the water, allow them to experience the sensations of the water, how it feels to float, how it feels to swim, how it feels to move through the water. Let them have that time to become confident and familiar with the water as well. That's the most important part, is these students, it may be their first time in an aquatic environment, as I said, so allow them to take their time to experience this environment for themselves. And finally, a quick key message to finish us up here is that simple language plus engaging programs or activities plus visuals equals teaching success. So that's a really important thing to remember there, to be able to teach our students who don't speak English as a first language. Okay, we are going to go into a quick fun activity now. So this activity is going to involve a few phrases or sentences, key messages that we would typically use day to day in our lessons, in our communications with our colleagues or our teachers, our parents, our students. These are phrases that we might use all the time in our lessons to explain water safety messages or other sorts of things as well. However, what I want you to do is have a look at these two statements here. A lifesaver is a trained person that patrols our beaches, and they provide a safe and enjoyable aquatic experience for all visitors to the beach. Now, what I want you to do is think about the language used in those statements. Do you think that these would be easily understood by every single student or every single participant in your program? And are there any key words there that may be a bit challenging or may require a bit of a higher level of English understanding there? If you can think of some words in that section there, pop them in the chat, and then I'm going to show you what we've found as well. So the first word there, patrols. Now this could be a word that we typically use day to day. Lifesavers patrol beaches, lifeguards patrol the pools, etc., etc. However, it's important to notice that some of these words, like patrolled, is not a common word for many students in their day-to-day language that they would use. It's also important to note that the word patrol could be used when talking about maybe the police force or another force there. So important to you understand the meaning behind some words as well. Excellent. And we've got Jennifer who's popped in patrols, experience and aquatic. So let's see what else we have in here. We've got provide as well, which could be a bit of a challenging one. So another option for instead of provide, we could say they make a safe and enjoyable aquatic experience or something similar to that. And as some people have said, aquatic experience there. So not only thinking about the words that you use, but also the phrase itself. How long is the sentence? What are you saying? Can we make it shorter, more specific, and just get to the point of what we're trying to get across? Okay, another Slido, which we're going to get through pretty quickly. We might just do this first one, but what I want you to do is jump on. We're going to do exactly what we just did. We're going to scan the QR code and you're going to identify for me the words in that statement that could be challenging for students to understand. So I'll give you a couple of moments to jump on that QR or that Slido again, scan that code, type in the words in this statement that could be challenging for students to understand. And while we're doing that, just quickly flicking through the chat there, which I can see some fantastic people sharing their experiences, which is excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for popping your experiences in the chat. That's really, really good to see. And we will be able to read through these after the presentation as well. So if you do have any feedback or other things that you'd like us to think about, make sure you pop those in the chat as well, and we'll be able to read through those and take them on board as well. Oh, I can see here. There we go. So the Slido only has 2 characters per word. So that's absolutely fine. We might be able to do that another time if we have another session. But here we have the phrases here that were in the Slido and the highlighted words that could be challenged. But thank you to those who popped it in the chat. Absolutely actively supervised. We've got underlined there, identify as well, and between. So these sorts of things you will have to think about when you're teaching your students as well, and think about how you could rephrase or choose different words to be able to get your message through to your students. Okay, we do only have a couple of minutes left, so we will jump through to the Q&A. Now, Michelle has been jumping on to the chat and she's been able to monitor if we do have any questions in there or any questions on the Slido poll. So, Michelle, I'm going to get you to switch off your microphone and just let me know if we do have any questions that we can answer now.
No questions coming through, a lot of comments, which is great, and I've posted those in the chat, and I'll keep posting those in the chat for everybody who's on Slido to be able to see as well. A lot of people saying thanks to B for your presentation. Caitlin, some great points coming through. And yeah, if everyone wants to go through and read those dot points, I've pasted them all in there for you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Michelle. Well, we do only have 1 more minute left of our presentation. So during that time, please do pop in any comments in the chat here. Jump onto the Q&A if you can't access the chat and pop them in there. But we would like to request, this is 1 more separate QR code, and this is for a survey that we would request that you fill out for this overall presentation or this overall workshop today. This allows us to ensure that the feedback we receive on these surveys we can use when planning future presentations and professional development for you guys to make sure that we are providing the correct support that you would like, the correct information, the topics that you'd like to hear about. So please do pop your feedback into that survey. All you have to do is scan that QR code. We do have a link as well that Michelle might be able to pop in the chat. If not, we are going to be sending out, so those who did register online for this workshop, you will be receiving a certificate of attendance and participation. So please make sure that you keep an eye out on your emails. You will also have the link to the recording of this workshop, as well as the link to this survey that we are asking you to complete as well. So we will keep this up there for a little while. I will also be able to, and I will pop this back up very shortly, so don't worry if you missed out, and the link is also in the chat. But if you have any questions or if you'd like to get in contact with anybody who has presented today or any of us at LSB in the different departments, we do have our contact details on screen now. So make sure you can email us, you can give us a call if you have any questions. Definitely keep an eye out on your emails. We will be sharing the resources that I mentioned today, and we will let you know when they are available in the toolkit for you to access as well, those classroom resources. The survival swimming resources are already up on the toolkit. I think Michelle popped a link in the chat there, but we'll also make sure we pop it into that follow-up email as well. Definitely make sure you check those out. And as always, make sure you stay safe, stay connected in any way you can, and we are really looking forward to when we can host you again at some face-to-face workshops. Keep an eye out. We will keep you updated with everything as we go moving forward and what's coming up and what is happening next year as well. So for now, I will pop it back on that survey QR code slide. Michelle has also popped the contact information into the chat as well. We hope that you had a wonderful time during this session. Thank you very much to all of our presenters today. Beata and Michael, fantastic input there, and some really great points, great insight into the work that you do and the research that you've done and looked into, and some tips for us to be able to make sure that we're teaching our students in the most effective way that we can, to make sure that we can continue ensuring our students and our children remain safe on and around water. And on that note, thank you very much to everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time.